What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with hogsports.com. That's HAWG sports.com. Arkansas just picked up two big commitments. After this big recruiting weekend, Danny West is going to join us to talk about all that. It's all happening on Hog Sports Live. So, Danny, I'm going to bring Danny West in here. He's going to talk about the visit weekend, but just to go over it real quick, we had Ty'Kieast Crawford, who committed to Arkansas, the number 71 ranked offensive lineman, or excuse me, number 71 ranked player in the country. Allen Horace, a tight end, who's committed to Arkansas as well, and then Dominic Richardson, a running back who also was on a visit and had a good trip. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about Jashad Stewart. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Danny. Danny, what do you think of the commitments over the weekend?
It's been a busy day. I kind of had a feeling going into the weekend that it might be a really busy Sunday. What I did not prepare for was Tiger Woods lining up for his final putt to end the 11-year drought, and Allen Horace tweets out his commitment at that very moment there. So a little bit unexpected there. That's the way recruiting is, buddy. That's the story of my life. But, you know, it was a really good day. They needed this type of day, Trey. You know, it's kind of been a little bit stagnant. You're hanging around 4 commitments for the last, couple of weeks or whatever. And, just not a lot to talk about. So they really, really wanted weekend, and they've got it. You mentioned Ty'Kieast there. We could say this now that he's gone public with it, but he's been on board for over a month now. He came up March 9th, and I'll never forget, he came out and he said, well, I committed. And I said, okay, well, how long are you going to, take until you announce this thing? I'm thinking maybe a couple hours. He's going to get home and tweet it out. He's waiting on a graphic or something. And he says, I'm going to wait till after football season. I was like, oh, boy, that ain't going to cut it. Man, you got to speed this up a little bit. So Arkansas was I think they were cognizant of that, and they said, hey, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling, and made a really heavy push at Ty'Kieast to get him on board publicly. And let's not overshadow Allen Horace now. That's a really good tight end pickup, very raw kid coming out of Crockett, Texas. He had offers from Oklahoma State, Nebraska, Baylor. I think Texas Tech had offered Allen, so 2 really good pickups. And then, as you mentioned, Dominic Richardson, the running back out of Oklahoma City. Bishop McGinnis ran for 2,000 yards, 2,100 yards, and 26 touchdowns last year. I really like this kid, and we do know he had a really good visit. Wouldn't surprise me, Trey. Keep your eyes peeled this week. Wouldn't surprise me if he made a move.
Danny West joining us here. If you like the video, be sure to throw us a thumbs up, share, follow, comment. If you're listening to this on podcast, be sure to throw us 5 stars. And if you want to give us a review, we'd love to have that. Also help us get our message out there. If you haven't subscribed to hogsports.com yet, it's just $1 a month right now, or you can take 30% off your first year. Excuse me, I should say $1 your first month, and then regular price after that. So that gives you a good opportunity to show what we're doing at hogsports.com for those of you who are interested. Danny West joining me on the phone here. There was also a little bit of big news. It was with another Arkansas commit, Jashad Stewart, who was at the opening in St. Louis. What did he have? He had a 4.61 second laser time 40-yard dash, a 4.14 in the shuttle, a 34.6 in the vertical, and his 131.6 rating is 5th nationally amongst everyone in the country who's attended an opening event, and they're all over the country. 5th nationally. He was the second best out of anyone there today. It was a 5'7", 172-pound running back named Kiyose Crawford, who was number 1. Stewart was the only defensive player in the top 13. And, excuse me, Stewart was the only defensive recruit in the top 13 in St. Louis, and only 19 competitors had a score of at least 100, and he had a 137.1. So definitely a big showing by Jashad Stewart. We've got him listed as a defensive end / outside linebacker, but I think we're thinking, defensive end linebacker, but I think we're thinking linebacker, right, Danny?
That's right. As far as I know, unless something changes, and he's going to be an outside linebacker at the next level. And that's what you want to see, Trey, from a 6'1", 223-pound guy that a lot of people, you watch him on film, yeah, he's impressive, but, is it real? Are the measurables there too? And I think he proved that this weekend, so good for him.
Danny West on the phone with us. So let's talk about these guys a little bit more in depth, Danny. Starting with Crawford. That's a big statement recruit. I mean, really the first big recruit in the class. I mean, they've got some good ones, obviously. Zevion Capers. And the thing about it is Greedy Vance, Zevion Capers, those guys have been blowing up since they've committed to Arkansas on camp circuits also. Ty'Kieast Crawford was also, well regarded, but when he was committed to Baylor, he wasn't the number 71 ranked player in the country. He went to one of the, I believe, the opening Dallas and blew up there and then shot up the rankings after that. And then, of course, Florida State and Tennessee and USC and all these schools come after him after then. And everybody seems to think they've got the inside track on him, but they didn't know what you knew, that he was quietly committed to Arkansas already.
Yeah, and you know what? Going back to last November when he first came up here, I want to say November 10th, he came up for a game, possibly the LSU game if I'm not mistaken, but he fell in love with it. I remember this is a little bit different kid now, and I mean that in a good way. He just kind of marches to a different drum. And I remember I called him the day after that game that he came up for last fall, and I asked him, how'd you like the campus? And he said, well, I saw every bit of it because I got lost. I said, what do you mean you got lost? He said, well, after the game, I thought I was going back to the facility, and it turns out I was going the opposite direction. So this kid ended up spending 2 hours after that game just walking around aimlessly. And so he started talking to people. He said he met a girl. He still stays in contact with this girl, so good for him on that part. But as far as a player, man, the first thing that stands out is his size. He's the real deal. You can take one look at him and know, yeah, that's what they're looking for. And that's why you see all those type of offers that he ended up with. But I liked what he said this morning. I don't think he was taking a shot necessarily because, we asked him the question, but, we asked him about the Alabama visit last weekend. And he said, it didn't really live up to the hype. I don't see the big deal, basically. So I think fans probably enjoyed hearing that from him.
Yeah. So, Danny, Arkansas has a big need at tight end in this class. If you look at the future, you've got 3 seniors at tight end with Chase Harrell, Hayden Johnson, and C.J. O'Grady. And then you've got one coming in Hudson Henry. So, really, for 2020, that leaves you with Hudson Henry and Grayson Gunner at tight end for a position that really you have to be experienced. You have to be very talented. It's the second hardest position to play on offense in this particular offense besides quarterback. So they need probably 2 and got a big one with Allen Horace already.
Yeah, that's the first key. Now you do want 2, and I think all eyes right now are on Brandon Fraiser. The kid out of McKinney North down in Texas. He's got a top 8. To no surprise, Arkansas made that cut. I think Auburn, Baylor, Iowa State, Nebraska, TCU, Texas Tech, and there was one more, maybe Missouri or Vanderbilt, but it was an SEC school anyway. But he's been up here a few times now. Look for him to set up an official visit. I think they're in a really good spot with Brandon. But definitely you've got to have 2. At some point, it starts getting a little bit worrisome. When you talk about that future depth going into next year, I'm not saying they're in terrible shape by any means. But, I think it is key to go out and find a second one to match with this guy, Allen Horace, who is really raw. I encourage people to look at his film. I think you'll see a lot of Jeremy Sprinkle. I keep saying that guy, but he's just super raw, really long, and he's got a long way to go in terms of getting bigger, developing as a blocker, but I think he's got a lot to work with. So good start at the tight end position, but go out and couple that with another guy, maybe a Brandon Fraiser, a Donovan Johnson, somebody like that, and I think you start feeling really good about that group.
Well, Danny, let's get to a couple of questions real quick, if you don't mind. I don't want to catch you off guard.
I don't mind.
But Larry Brown asked about any news on assistant basketball coaches, and I know that you had a little bit of a scoop right there. I don't know if you have it up in front of you, but just to go over things, what we're hearing, keep an eye on Scotty Thurman. Definitely keep an eye on Scotty Thurman, and it's not looking real strong for anybody else, I would say, on the staff currently. So what information have you heard behind the scenes there, Danny?
Well, we just hear a few names at a time. You know how this thing works. You go to a basketball showcase, you run into certain people, and they may be able to throw a couple of names your way. And so we did hear of Chris Walker from California. We've heard of Anthony Coleman, a guy at Arizona State. Craig Noodles Neal. He goes by Noodles apparently, and evidently he's got a pretty strong name across college basketball. So he's another guy that we've heard. And from there, I really haven't heard any new news over the last 48 hours or so. But hopefully this week, right? Wouldn't you expect that needs to start coming together?
Well, we got the early signing period starting this week coming
Wednesday.
up, right? Yeah, Wednesday. It stretches out a month, but there are some. I mean, they've got some spots to fill. And if you don't mind, Danny, just kind of go over basketball recruiting real quick. There's a couple of guys in Phoenix that they're off after pretty heavily, and Keith Grayson thinks that they're in great shape there also.
Hey, I wouldn't doubt it. Kyrie Walker is a 5-star forward out at Hillcrest Prep out in Phoenix, as well as his teammate Dalen Terry, another small forward, kind of a wing guy. Yeah, he's a 4-star himself. So 2 really good prospects there. I've heard from a couple of people that they've got a real shot at Kyrie Walker, the 5-star. And of course, these are 2020 guys, so still a long way out yet. But
Keith was saying yesterday
that'd be real impressive.
Keith was saying yesterday there's a chance that Walker could reclassify.
There is
to 19.
A chance. I'm not sure there's a great chance, but there is a chance. He has talked about that a little bit. That'd be something for me to check into.
If you're talking about it just now this late, it seems like it's
going to be tough.
Yeah, going to be a pretty big long shot there. Okay, let's see. We got another question from Gregory Qualls. Is Arkansas going to hold their extra scholarships for next year? And they don't want to. I mean, they're going to be in the grad transfer market for a linebacker and a safety, or excuse me, a defensive back. I don't think Chad clarified whether it would be cornerback or safety, but they need help at both spots.
Yeah, they do. And I tell you what, we keep bringing up Luke Jones, coming from Notre Dame. He's decided after a year and a half, 18 months, whatever you want to call it, that he's going to leave Notre Dame. So keep an eye on that one. I think that one could be happening for Arkansas. So that would be really good news, Trey. You think about the waiver situation going around college football right now. You've seen Tate Martell, Justin Fields. Is that the guy that went to Ohio State? Both of these guys get cleared. Why not let a Luke Jones get that same waiver? And if he does, buddy, there's your center, right? Maybe. And that's a guy that they really need at center right now. So keep your eye on Luke Jones. Obviously, we're talking about the Pulaski Academy graduate from class of 2018. So he was a really highly regarded guy coming out of high school. Maybe that could be your answer in the middle of that offensive line.
So you think if they go with offensive linemen that maybe the secondary would be the spot that's kind of missing out, I guess, on that? Because they've definitely got to go out and get a linebacker,
You've got to get a linebacker. Yeah, you've got to get a linebacker. So, if you've only got 2 to give and you do want to address that center spot and Luke is available, then, I would prioritize that. And go linebacker. That's just me. They've got to, man. Look at that group right now. It's really thin. They
need some body. Somebody asked me today who I thought could be the next Armand Watts, and I was like, well, hopefully for them it'd be a Giovanni LaFrance or Brito Tutt. Those are really the only 2 guys that are in that category, and really it's the two groups that they need somebody to step up in. So if they could get a good season out of either one of those guys, that would be big. Trenton Wiggins wants to know what quarterbacks are we looking at in the class of 2020 and what is Blaine Toll looking like? Blaine Toll's got a lot of crystal balls to Oklahoma lately.
Yeah, and I've actually joined that group. I think that's an offer that really, really sticks with Blaine, probably one that he had been hoping for and kind of waiting on. So if Oklahoma pushes it, I think he could be Norman bound. So keep an eye on that. As far as the 2020 quarterbacks, no real movement there. Still waiting on Chandler Morris at some point. He's gonna have to make a decision. And as of today, I still think Arkansas is in a really good spot to get Chandler. There's a lot of different dynamics with this quarterback search this year. Some really good prospects that they're on, but that one just every time I look up, it just seems to make the most sense on both sides of the equation. So. I would probably still put my money on Chandler being the quarterback in this year's class, and as of today, they're only taking 1. So I would bet on him.
A lot has changed with the grad transfer market with them picking up Nick Starkel and him having 2 years of eligibility, whereas it looked like there was a good chance that they could bring in 2 in the class, and there were some good ones out there. There still are. I mean, I don't mean to discount Shane Illingworth out of California, who's taken a few visits to Arkansas. Haynes King, I believe, has taken a couple of visits to Arkansas. Really not, number one ranked quarterback prospect in Texas. Michael Wright out of Georgia, a dual threat guy. Jacoby Criswell inside the state, which it's looking more and more like maybe North Carolina with him. Stacy Littleton wants to know if there's still a good shot with Haynes King. I think we pretty much just addressed that. Stacy, if we didn't, then rephrase, I guess. Alan Cook wants to know, don't just waste a scholarship at not any not needs. Well, here's the deal, Alan. It would be a grad transfer, most likely. So it's a 1-year deal anyway. They're at 79 scholarships right now. They're going to be at 81. Technically, they'll be at 82 when Traylon Smith goes on scholarship for 2020. So they've got 3 scholarships, vacant there that they'll probably give to walk-ons also. So it's not just, wasting scholarships. These are more like 1-year deals. Jeremy Dick says, where do we stand with Sevion Morrison, Danny? Let's make this, I think, the last question. We've gone about 16 minutes here. Where do they stand with Sevion Morrison?
Sure, still right there in that top group. I'm not willing to say they're number one on his list at this point, but I do think they're in that top group for Sevion. He's been here a few times now already. This calendar year, he's been here a few times. So I would look for him to set up an official visit, and you're probably going to stay in the ball game with Sevion. But I tell you what, keep an eye on Dominic Richardson, another Oklahoma-based running back, the kid out of Bishop McGuinness, who was here this weekend. Again, for those who may have missed it 17 minutes ago, I think they're in really, really good shape coming out of this official visit this weekend. You are going to take 2 running backs, but right now I think Dominic may be one of them.
So just to recap here, Arkansas had a big visit weekend with Ty'Kieast Crawford, number 71 ranked player in the country. It's weird to say that they got he would be the highest rated commit currently, I guess, that Arkansas has had, depending on which service you look at. But Ty'Kieast Crawford, and really an area of need when you consider they did well on the offensive line last year, but didn't bring in, just a lot of right out of the gate studs. Like you would expect a guy like this to come in and compete to play right off the bat.
Yeah.
Allen Horace out of Crockett, Texas, a tight end who's committed to Arkansas, one of 2 tight ends we'll think they'll try to sign in this class, and then Dominic Richardson, the running back out of Oklahoma City, Bishop McGuinness, who Danny just talked about there. Jashad Stewart also putting up absurd numbers in Arkansas commit at the St. Louis opening regional combine. So, Danny, do you have any last words of wisdom and maybe could possibly project what's on the horizon for Razorback recruiting coming up?
Well, a couple of weekends off, thank the Lord. Doesn't appear to be any official visitors coming in next weekend or the one after that, but May 3rd through the 5th, that's starting to pile up a little bit. They got some good guys coming in that weekend. I think Garrett Hayes may be coming in that weekend. There's a couple more. Ryan Watts, big-time cornerback out of Little Elm, Texas, that Arkansas was in there early for. So that May 3rd through the 5th, that appears to be the next big one. So maybe a little break in between. And like I said, keep your eye on Dominic Richardson throughout the week. Maybe something happens there.
All right, Danny. So I want to remind everybody, if you haven't thrown us that thumbs up, go ahead and do that now. Throw us a thumbs up, like, share, follow, comment. It helps us get our message out there if you do any of those things. If you're listening on podcasts, which, by the way, you can find on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, plenty of different ways to listen and watch, and, of course, YouTube, Facebook Live, and we always put it on hogsports.com, which, by the way, is $1 right now. If you sign up for your first month, it's $1, or you can sign up for a year and take 30% off your first year. That's hawgsports.com. So, for Danny West, this has been Trey Biddy wrapping up this big recruiting weekend for Arkansas, and we'll catch you next time.